Hey everybody, welcome to another review from AC's Mac Escape on YouTube. It is 11:06 p.m. and I just finished watching the Marvel Cinematic Universe film Black Widow. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty details of this review. Now, given what has been going on for the better part of the year, and I'm sure most of you or all of you are well aware of what has been transpiring within our world, last year was the first time we didn't have, let alone films, but this last year was the first time we didn't have a Marvel Cinematic Universe film being released in cinema. And the fact that we have one being released now on its proper schedule is a very momentous occasion that I do believe that we all should embrace. As Black Widow takes place immediately after the events of Civil War. Now, you have Natasha Romanoff, who was on the run, given her participation within the Sokovia events that split the Avengers into two separate factions. You have one that was led by Tony Stark, Iron Man, and another one led by Steve Rogers, Captain America. And given how Marvel didn't necessarily have all the rights to the cinematic characters for this film, Civil War was a much smaller, more less epic scale compared to the original crossover event that was quite popular for its time. But it still had, while it was still epic, of course, it was much smaller compared to the comic book. When you have Natasha Romanoff on the run, given her participation with the Sokovia Accords, you have her returning to her original training grounds, run into her adopted sister, Yelena, who's also Black Widow. Do you have her run into her adopted parents, Alexei, Red Guardian, played by David Harbour? Do you have Elena, who was played by Rachel Weisz, who is also a Black Widow? And they're being hunted down by other Black Widows who are being brainwashed to carry out specific assassination tasks. And of course, you have Taskmaster being factored into the mix. And they are attempting to find a way to save and eliminate Taskmaster along with the Black Widows. With that being said, given the reviews that I have listened to and watched regarding Black Widow, I want to state that I do agree that she should have had her film much earlier. And I think that given that those who have watched Endgame, and I'm assuming everybody at some point has watched Infinity War or Endgame, we already know Natasha's fate, so it kind of takes away the emotional impact that I think it would have been much more better to have her film take place after Civil War. That way it would have provided a necessary bridge into Infinity War and Endgame as the emotional impact would have been there. But it doesn't necessarily detract from the film for me personally. So, but I have to say, I did enjoy Black Widow. The tone is very similar to Winter Soldier, and Winter Soldier is one of my favorite Marvel films of all time. Probably my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe film of all time, and I don't really see anything within Marvel replacing that anytime soon. The tone is quite similar. The action is very, very similar to how it's much more focusing on the grounded, realistic nature of the espionage world. Natasha remembering her past while also facing her present. But I have to say, I did enjoy it. I thought Scarlett Johansson did a marvelous job, as usual, as Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff. But the show stealer, as this obviously was intended to be a vehicle for, was Florence Pugh, who does a marvelous, amazing job as Yelena, does another Black Widow. She provides that cathartic humor. That she is that anti-hero brooding presence that I cannot wait to see exactly how they're going to factor her into other Marvel Cinematic Universe films. I would love to see her interact with, say, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Shang-Chi, War Machine, even the Guardians of the Galaxy. She was such a fun character that I just simply cannot wait to see what they're going to do with her. Florence Pugh did an amazing job. So, hey, props to Florence Pugh. Massive show stealer with this film. David Harbour as Alexei, the Red Guardian. He has some humorous lines too. He is quite funny. I would love to have seen more of him. But again, the fact that you want to see more of him means that they did a great job with the character. So, and Rachel Weisz playing Melena, the motherly figure, is the emotional and soul unit of this family equation, where she is attempted to do everything she can to protect her children and protect her husband. It's just, she did a marvelous. I mean, I love Rachel Weisz in general. She's just a marvelous actress. One of my main complaints about Marvel at times has been the fact that they utilize too much humor in terms of providing that, I feel, what could be unnecessary levity. Uh, this film, I think, did it very quite similar to Winter Soldier, was how they managed to find that necessary balance between seriousness, drama, and humor. And this was wonderful. I love how they managed to incorporate humor at the appropriate moments without it having to detract from the seriousness of what's been going on the screen. And very few films have been successful with that, but Winter Soldier and this film has managed to really find a way to provide that true balance between, as I mentioned, the seriousness, the drama, the action, and the humor. Uh, One complaint that I have about this film, and it's been something that has reverberated throughout the course of the Marvel Cinematic Universe films, was how they have a trend of disappointing villains. Taskmaster could have been a great villain. I loved how when the character first showed up, there is that Terminator-inspired sense of an unrealistic killing machine that would have been nice to see the character transition more into a stalk of a predator stalking his prey. And you see Taskmaster for a bit, then it disappears for a bit, then he shows up towards the end of the film, and you don't really feel that sense of intimidation and intimidating connection to the character, and that's one of my main complaints with Marvel. I mean, with the exception of Loki, Killmonger, Thanos, and I guess you could add Ultron to the mix, but your top three villains, your well written, perfectly portrayed villains have been Loki, Thanos, and Killmonger. And I think Taskmaster could have been up there, but it's just I don't know what it is. They just have this real true sense of not, I guess, caring about the villains as much as they should. And it just would be nice to have a villain that doesn't necessarily have a tragic backstory to it. So, but that in and of itself doesn't detract from the quality of the film for me, as once again, I will mention that I did enjoy it. I thought that as I mentioned, the fact that it's quite similar to, I think the fact that it's quite similar to Winter Soldier is why I enjoyed it so much. And there's also some very heartwarming and emotional moments that actually had my eyes sticking up with tears. So, for that, I have to say, Black Widow is up there as far as being one of my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe films. It's not one of those, oh my god, the greatest film in the whole wide world. I'm not going to say that. But anything after Endgame is going to pale in comparison. I think that's what a lot of people are failing to realize when it comes to these films now, is the fact that now, after Thanos, things have to get smaller for a bit before the universe becomes that much more expansive. And it's important to maintain realistic and possibly low expectations. But other than that, Black Widow, I think, did exactly what it needed to do as far as providing that sense of closure for the character in the storyline, and also establishing Florence Pugh into the future as far as the Black Widow character within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And there is a scene at the very end of the credits, and it's a very cool one, I have to say. Be sure to stay for that. And anyone who's familiar with the comic books knows exactly the direction that they're going in. But other than that, I thought the action was wonderful, the acting was great, the emotional moments and the humor was perfect. So for that, I have to say that Black Widow, I'm going to go ahead and give it a 4 out of 5, just because of the villain depiction of Taskmaster. But other than that, it's still a great film. I enjoyed it. That's my review of Black Widow. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section what you thought about it, if you have seen the film, and then when you do watch it, please let me know what you thought about it. I do recommend it, and I hope you guys come to watch it this weekend. Provide a comment on my Facebook, and provide a comment on my YouTube, or a like if you want to. That is my review of Black Widow. The next one will be Space Jam 2, and you'll be hearing from me again, my friends. Take care, and peace out.